Leadership, it's more important now than ever before. And it's always been important. But check this out. This is a recent study that was done last year where they took a study of many employees from many large corporations and industries. And they asked them the question, how would you rate your leaders on a scale of effectiveness and quality? And 48% of employees said that they would not rate their leadership as high quality leadership. That's a lot of employees. And I was talking to someone about this study and they said, Brandon, I would gather that it's even more than that. And if they studied even more people, they'd find that it was even less people who had faith in their leadership. And you know what? That might be the case. But what this tells me, someone who's thinking, well, how can we make this better? How can we help people become more effective leaders in their relationships with their family, but also in the boardroom, also inside of their company or organization? And the answer is talk to high performing leaders who've been doing this for years and years and years and speak on and teach, but not just speak on and teach, but they truly live these principles of what we're going to call purpose-driven leadership. Because leadership isn't the title. Leadership isn't just something that you have in your email signature when you send an email, right? Leadership is the act of service. Right. And I'm going to ask our guest today, Dr. Dorothy Martin-Neville, what she believes the definition of purpose-driven leadership is and what that looks like. But most importantly, in this conversation together, you're going to take away the step-by-step guide to becoming a more high quality and effective leader in your entire life. So you know the fee for the show. When you take away any piece of knowledge or philosophy or any tip that just helps you to perform at a higher level, then we don't show ads. We don't show sponsors. All that we ask is that you continue to be the best part of the Be Better team and share this show with just one other person who can also take away value from this conversation. I'm so excited for you to hear from Dr. Dorothy A. Martin-Neville. And without further ado, let's talk to her. For those who don't know Dr. Dorothy is an international speaker, best-selling author, an executive leadership consultant, and a master trainer. She's founded 4 companies, including the Institute of Healing Arts and Sciences, where as a leader in the field of integrative health in the United States, she's trained physicians, nurses, and many others in the field of energy medicine for over 2 decades. Dr. Dorothy, I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. It's so great to be here and to see you again.
It's great to see you. For those who have seen the last few episodes, I've spoken with Abby Beal, I've spoken with Randy Kay, and everyone's probably wondering what's going on with this National Speaker Association panel we've got up in here. But Dr. Dorothy, for those who don't know, Dr. Dorothy and I have known each other since 2019 when I joined the Connecticut National Speakers Association. And Dr. Dorothy, you've been doing this for a long time, and you were and continue to be someone that I look up to in this field as someone who's gone through this journey. I mean, we were talking about adventures, and you've been on many adventures in the same world, and I've learned a lot from you. I greatly value the feedback and the advice that you've given me, and I'm so excited to have you here so we can share some of these nuggets of information for the whole world.
Thank you. It's great to, when you acquire wisdom, it's great to share it with as many people as you can and help them learn it a little more easily or a little quicker than you did, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's life, right? Help other people learn what we've gone through and help them do it a little bit smoother.
Right. Why not?
Yeah. So you've been doing this for a long time, okay?
Very long time.
And it's many different things. Like we're not really talking about the energy side of things today, but I mean we could even have you back to talk about that. I'm mostly curious about how you were in that world for 2 decades, even longer. Right. Like how does that relate to the work that you do with leaders and what you've learned about leadership? Was it throughout that process? Was it afterwards? Like when did you find yourself in this world of purpose-driven leadership?
It's a long story, but as you mentioned, I started 4 companies, and my first was as a psychologist, and so as a psychologist, seeing 42 patients a week for 20 years, there's a lot of experience you require and a lot of intimacy that you have with a number of people, and learned how certain personalities were coming into my office in leadership positions, were coming into my office with all kinds of issues that may present as a personal issue or a business issue or something, but inevitably it always impacted their health. Mm-hmm. In long term issues end up impacting your health. And I started noticing patterns, which is why I ended up opening up the school after having been in practice for a number of years, because I started noticing that certain personalities were consistently developing particular diseases or disorders. And it always was a result of how they led, whether it's leader in your house. And I loved it that you mentioned that earlier, that we're leaders in our own home, we're leaders of our own lives, but not just leaders in corporate or leading as an entrepreneur owning our own company. Leadership is an ownership that this is my life, this is my journey. I'm creating the story. I'm
Yeah.
I'm writing the script for my journey. There's a leadership position you have to take with that. That I don't just wait and see what gets dumped in my lap and work with it. I have a purpose, I have a focus, and I'm working towards becoming more of who I'm meant to be, as well as doing more of what I came here to do, and taking a leadership role in that, whatever that is. And that leads us through many stages of life. And for many folks now, especially, it leads us through many different careers.
Yeah.
But we've got to be leading that and not hanging around waiting for something else to make it happen.
Yeah, 100%. I
Yeah,
remember when I first made that leap into leadership when I was very young, and I didn't understand what leadership even was. I used to think it was a title. I used to think it was just the logical next step was to become a leader, right? To rise up in the company.
right,
And I remember I just thought it was about leading other people and managing other. I probably used the word managing even more, even though the title said leader. But I
right.
remember my boss at the time said, Brandon, before you can lead other people, you've got to lead yourself.
Good boss, good boss. Smart, really smart boss as well. Because it's, as you said earlier, just because you're in a theoretical leadership position does not for one moment imply that you're a leader.
Yeah.
Only that you're in a leadership position, which is why the stats were what you showed, that so many folks are out here looking for leaders, and yet they end up getting bosses or managers who have no ability to lead.
Yes.
And so, we've got to differentiate that a leadership position does not imply that you are a leader. It hopes you are. But
Yeah.
sadly, so many do not get leadership training, leadership development skills. And they're in over their head and they know it and they're surviving. And
Hmm.
that stress that they have because they're in a position nobody trained them for, nobody qualified them for, and they have not developed the leadership skills within themselves. So they're in a survival mode, and survival really ends up doing this, survival mentality, fight or flight. And we end up straining the adrenals, we end up straining the immune system and then the adrenals, and then we end up becoming ill because every day people are out there trying to survive in a position that they have, whether it's their own company or working in corporate. People are trying to survive. We're not meant to survive this journey. We're meant to live it and we're meant to thrive in it. So when you're back into surviving your position, so that you can make an income,
Yeah.
you're losing and the company is losing and you're going to end up losing your health. And so
Yeah.
that's how, for me, it all came together. And then after 4 companies, and one of them had 63 positions on my payroll, you
Wow.
really learn, because I was offering medical and dental 401k match to my employees, my full-time employees, and I had a number of 1099s. But you learn so much more about leadership, about what's needed with all those different personalities, because you want powerful personalities in powerful positions.
Yes.
But powerful personalities don't always blend smoothly. So an effective leader has to learn how to blend those and make that happen. And you can't be intimidated by the people who work for you while you
Mm.
lead them. So there were so many things I saw showing up. And when people would come to see me initially, when I lived overseas for 10 years, and when I came back to the States, and opened up a practice, my therapy practice for a little bit, and began to recognize that the folks coming in to see me really didn't need therapy. They needed to learn how to lead, how to become
Wow.
effective leaders, which led me instead then to look at what is this world of coaching, because it didn't exist when I left the country.
Yeah.
What is this world of coaching? What does this look like? And then realize that allowed me to really bring in my awareness of psychodynamics, my awareness of how people function and don't, the stories they tell themselves, what goes on, and how all of that impacts their leadership as well as their health. So it, to me, was not a full circle or a wonderful development next step of bringing it all together into one package. And how can I help them become better leaders and relax and
Hmm.
enjoy the job rather than survive the job?
Yeah.
Dramatically different.
Well said. I want to ask you more about, like, specifically if there's a leader who is in a position right now where they are leading and they're just extremely stressed. The they're short staffed. I mean, I'll ask you right now because I think this is an important question, especially in today's climate. Right, there's a lot of places
Mhm.
hurting for people. A lot of places are in that survival phase. They're not necessarily thriving. And I know someone in particular, actually,
Mhm.
who is a friend of my wife's, who is an incredible leader. And I've seen her in action. I've been around her many times. Great human being. And she epitomizes what we're talking about here as an effective leader. But the stresses on this person are immense right now. Their responsibilities are immense. And she's just moving through and surviving, doing the best that she can. What I mean, and we talked about the effect of stress on your body and your health. And I mean, I've read this book called When the Body Says No
Right.
by Gabor Mate, and it talks exactly about people who have specific stresses and specific patterns. It leads to specific illnesses in different people. The same things lead to the same illnesses and diseases. And my question is, how would you, and I know it's a big question, so I'm curious to see where you take it. How would you advise this person to care for themselves while also operating in this stressful environment as a leader?
Well, if I was just to have a quick conversation with her, would be dramatically different than if I was to work with her. If I was to work with her, I'd want to look at what her leadership style is, because I've created a leadership self-assessment tool that shows 5 different styles of leadership, because each one of those is predisposed to different types of diseases, because each
Mm,
one carries their stress differently. But from what you're talking about in a quick summarization, that when somebody is in that position where they're pretty common, unfortunately, right now, where there's so many demands, there's not enough staff, all of these different things are happening. What ends up taking place is survival, as you said. But survival mentality doesn't get the job done better. It doesn't get the job done more efficiently. That survivor, as if the earth is going to end at any moment, as if she's going to be fired or the company's going to go out of business at any given moment in time. That level of stress does not generate her best response. Her best response comes when she can be far more at peace, when she can be far more balanced. Because when you're at that level of stress at the office, you take it home.
mm,
And when you take it home, if you're in a relationship, whether it's a spouse or your children or a lover, whatever it may be, you're bringing stress into that relationship because you're not really bringing you into that relationship. You've disconnected from you. You become a survivor who's getting through life. And so you lose touch with what your needs are, what your wants are. And you're just going from 100% stress to 98% stress to 100% stress.
yeah.
That ability to say it's Friday and I'm done, I'm going into complete peace, doesn't exist,
Mm,
because you still stay caught up in survival because it becomes a way of life. So it really is my first thought for anybody in that situation is, let's stop and take a look at, when do you feel most productive? Is it back over here when you're at peace? Because your creativity, your problem solving skills, your ability to really be on target, to be focused, to be clear, and also perceptive increases enormously. You know that when you're more at peace, and what I say to my folks, the way I phrase it is that you're sitting in this chair and the world you created is over there. So if you're in this chair and over there are all the jobs you've had, all the friends you've had, perhaps lovers you've had, homes you've lived in, cities you've worked in, all of those things are there. Over here is you.
mm,
When you can separate from the life you've created, you have much more of an ability to look at things objectively, to see things far more clearly. When you're caught up in it, you lose perspective. You lose your ability to see things that over here, that 30,000-foot view, if you will, gives you the ability to see things from another perspective, gives you the ability to perform your job from your place of strength rather than a place of survival.
It's almost like a form of dissociation in a way, looking at
Really,
things
it
from a third
really
party.
is. Yeah, yeah. And that, to me, spiritual detachment, whatever you want to call it, a healthy emotional disassociation, whatever term you use is irrelevant. It's that stepping back and looking that gives you the ability to more clearly assess, more intuitively know what needs to get done. Because you know that there are times we simply know inside this isn't working
Mm-hmm.
or this is. And if we step in silence and know this isn't working and we're detached a bit, we can more clearly see what needs to shift to make it work.
Yeah.
When we're in the midst of it and it's not working and we're working really hard to think, what was it? What was it? Really?
Yeah.
Think of what you're doing emotionally, spiritually, physically. And in terms of productivity, in terms of effective leadership, it's impacted. It's impacted. So that separation, that disconnection, to step back and be at peace, whether that's a walk in the woods, whether that is reading a book that has nothing to do with the office, whether it's entertaining friends, it doesn't matter what it is. Everybody has different stimuli that works, that brings out peace, that brings out that ability to let it go. But the illusion that if we're really good, we won't let it go till it's perfectly in alignment
Yeah.
is a belief system. That's a story we tell ourselves. And that's really part of what I work on with all of the people I work with. What are the stories you're telling yourself? I had a
Wow.
client who once said to me, I just really can't stand any of my employees. I can't stand any of them. And I don't know why they're not doing everything they're supposed to. The company's not going where it's supposed to. I said, well, if you can't stand any of your employees, what do you think of yourself at the moment? What do you think of yourself? Well, I'm not doing a damn good job either. Well, if you're not, how do you think you're treating them? So, how
Hmm.
do you think all of you are in survival and avoidance? Let's back up a moment.
Yeah.
Let's back up. So, by the time we finished working together, she said, one of the things you gave me above all the other pragmatic tips on how to run a business and how to do the things she loved to do and delegate the things her day was filled primarily with things she didn't like doing when she had other people around who were asking to do some of those things because they loved it. And yet she wanted control because she had to get it working. That when she let all that stuff go and she did what she loved, which was developing her leaders,
Mm-hmm.
she was fed, the leaders were fed, they were recognized, the numbers started increasing, profits started coming in better. And she said to me, the greatest thing you gave me was I remember why I started the business in the first place. I love
Yeah.
what I do. And if I can get you to love what you do, remember why you started it. Now let's look about what needs to be changed. And also, if this is your vision for your company and it's down here, if your company is going to get there, you've got to get there.
Mm.
The person, the man or woman who's running this company isn't capable of leading that company. Who do you need to become is equally important to what vision do you want if you're going to expand your company. You need to become somebody who can run a bigger company or a more productive company. You can't be where you are today and live that dream of the future. You've got to become that person in the future as well.
Wow. You've got to match your vision.
Yeah, you really do.
I know at the same time that there's a leader listening who, like that advice that you gave of, focusing in a sense on your sweet spot, focusing on your strength, focusing on
Yes.
where you are most skilled and able and what brings you the most joy. I know there's leaders listening who say, that's great. I know my sweet spot. I know where the most efficient use of my time is,
Mm.
but because of the state of where we are, it's not possible for me to only focus on this. I'm still covering over here and I'm covering over here. Would you then recommend the same advice to that person of taking the time for you to dissociate and look at things from a top-down view, or would the advice be different?
It would be the same. And my thought is, if you know what your sweet spot is, and you've still got these other two things to do, can you, because everything in life is about perspective, and everything is about perspective, can you shift and your perspective is looking at your sweet spot, where you are most effective, what you do best? How does that impact these other two elements? To use your example, how does that impact them? And what can you do to bring people in? And it may be people you've already got, because hiring is an issue in and of itself right now. Who have you got that each of those, that's their sweet spot?
Mm.
And is it slightly changing somebody's position who could run with that? And when you're in your sweet spot, you can get done something in a half an hour that takes you 8 hours when it's not your sweet spot.
Yeah.
Right. And so all of you can function more efficiently. And if that's not a possibility, how can you focus on what is your sweet spot and allocate hours to each of those other pieces that's not? And then stay in the sweet spot. Not only does it make those other two seem less foreboding, when you're doing them, it doesn't feel as if you're drowning in them. It feels like it's a part of it.
Yeah.
Right? So again, we're back to, what's the story you're telling yourself? That I've got to survive this. I've got to do all of this. And I've got to do it in the way I'm doing it because it's the only thing I know. Step back a moment. And whether you're working with an effective coach or you've got that wisdom you can speak with a friend about, it doesn't matter. However you get there, take that time to remember the sweet spot is your most effective.
Yeah.
And when you're in that, you can work with these other things more effectively. It's up to you really to get support if you need. If you're so far into the weeds, you need somebody to help you come out. Ask.
Yeah.
Ask. And that's the big one. Ask. As much as coaching has been around for a couple decades now, people are still hesitant to ask.
Yeah.
Is it really worth the money? Is it really worth the time? Yes. It's pretty effective. Yes.
And it relieves a lot of stress from your life when you're focusing on your own zone of genius. It brings you more joy in what you do. All around a great solution. Sage advice.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is about making you the best leader you can be. But that means recognizing, as I said, I created these 5 leadership styles that in my observation is really the pretty consistent pattern. There are many, I can tell you as a psychologist, I studied so many personality styles, so many constructs out there, so many different ones exist. But with this leadership component that I created, it's really looking at, are you that creative leader? Many creative folks have limited ability to implement, but they're marvelously creative. Well, own that's where your skill set comes in.
Yeah.
And who can you bring in that's a great implementer that may not have a creative thought in their mind, but together you could become a really effective team? Or how can you develop some of your own abilities to implement? What techniques can you put in place that support you in implementation? But recognize you'll never become a great implementer. That's not your strength. Yours is in the creative element. So how can you bring in support? What do you need to do? What systems do you need to set up that help with implementation? And some are great implementers. Just tell me where to go and what to do.
Yeah.
And they're frustrated because they have no direction.
That's me. I think that's me, at least. I haven't taken the test, but
that once you have that, working on the creative, just speaking with somebody, if I were working with you and you didn't know, we're back to what feeds you. What are the strengths you've had that have brought success to your life so far?
Yeah.
What is your vision of success going forward in 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years? What does that look like to you? And if you can really bring that in, I just want to be a big success. Good for you. Good luck getting there. You want to do that. In what area do you want to do that? Is it going to be in broadcasting? Is this simply going to be a backdrop to what you're really doing? I mean, that's up to you. Yeah. And so then if you know that, then you know what you want to start focusing on learning, where you want to start making connections, where you want to find mentors, what you want to do in that industry. And just the fact that you now have a focus makes you feel more alive and more vibrant. And a challenge is just a challenge. It's not, oh my God, another battle I have to win.
Yeah.
And it, because perspective changes,
Mm-hmm.
and because the story changes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well said. I love all of that. Thank you for the personalized advice
Yeah.
that helps me immensely at the same time. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Purpose is a giant buzzword out there right now. Living your purpose, finding your purpose, leading with purpose. When did purpose become a part of your own leadership vocabulary? Has it always been there? Was it when you had 60 people on the payroll and you're discovering all these different things with all these different personalities? Like, what is purpose when it comes to leadership?
For me, and this is the honest to God truth. When I was about 9, 10 years old, I grew up in the housing projects in South Boston, and I remember being outside and watching so many of these women sitting on the stoop. And South Boston's a very Irish Catholic town. Or in those days, it was a very Irish Catholic town. And all of these women with all of these babies, many of them in physically abusive marriages to alcoholics and all kinds of situations. And I remember just not even knowing what a social worker was. But I remember at that point in my life, I wanted to get older and develop an ability to help these women recognize they didn't need to lead this life. Why on earth I knew that, how I knew that, only God knows. But I knew that there needed to be a better way. And I wanted to become somebody who could help these women learn to have a better life for themselves so they weren't surviving every day, getting further and further depressed with the illusions of more and more powerlessness. I know I didn't know those terms. I just knew that that was their experience, and I wanted to help them in some way. Again, I'd never seen a social worker, so I didn't know what they did. I just knew I could do that. And I did it because I was the oldest daughter in the house of others, and I could help my brothers and sisters. So
Yeah.
now I wanted to help these women get there. And eventually, I became a social worker. I became many things. I became an international airline stewardess, and then because to me, you live life and I want to live it. I don't want to survive it. And eventually, went on and got my degree and became a therapist.
Yeah.
And then it just kept expanding. And we need permission for that too, that we can have this dream, and this dream is marvelous. But once you achieve that dream, you do it 3 or 4 years, whatever the case may be, you realize that dream fit who I used to be. Now that I've lived this 3 or 4 years, I've learned so much more about my industry, about what I do. Wow, now that I know this, I'd love to do this. I want to go here. So then you grow and develop and study or do whatever you need to do to get there. And it's like you've climbed this mountaintop, and now you're at a different vista. Before you're at this mountaintop, now you're at this mountaintop. Then you're at that mountaintop. So the vistas keep changing as you grow. And it's not that you're inconsistent, it's that your vision keeps expanding, because the more you work, the higher that mountaintop, the more you get to see your options and possibilities for your own personal growth and for your career growth. And it's just exciting because it really makes life an adventure rather than this treadmill you get on and just keep surviving by running in place. It becomes an adventure that you undergo, and you write the script by learning more about who you are, strengths you have, things that bring your passion out. And that's another point. So many folks I meet have lost touch with passion. They've lost touch with vibrancy. They have a few laughs and they think that's passion. That's not passion. Passion is I can't wait to get up in the morning. Passion is I can't wait to take this trip, or I'm excited about whatever it may be. God, this project is almost over. We made it. We did it. That's passion. There's excitement there.
Yeah.
And that feeds our soul. It feeds our emotions, which gives us permission to take more emotional risks, to be more connected and intimate with people. But it also feeds our health. Because the immune system is impacted, the adrenals are impacted, so the hormones are impacted, and organically everything functions better when you're, I mean, just imagine, I just watching my movement. You just move, because you're so excited about the next trip, the next adventure, whatever that may be. The next book. I've written several books. Maybe the next book I write. That there's
Yeah.
excitement in that. That's how we're meant to live. I
Yeah.
truly believe that. That's how we're meant to live. We're not meant to survive this journey.
Yes. Working on those projects that fit into your purpose, that fit into your calling, just
Right.
ignites you with life, ignites you with a reason to get up and be excited to get up. It sounds like you were, in a way, called from a
Yeah.
very young age to do what it is you're doing. And the thing is, though, you were tuned into that and you noticed that and you were aware of that. And I guess where I want to lead this now is for those listening who might be saying, they're maybe in their late 20s, early 30s, even 40s and 50s, and they're saying, I have never experienced that calling. I never had that experience in my life where I said, I want to help people who are like this. Would you say that it's that they haven't experienced that, or maybe they just weren't quite tuned in the moment to
Yeah.
recognize and be aware of that?
I would say they weren't tuned in enough to see it. I think we all know. I think we all know exactly why we're here, what we're here to do. But again, goes back to the stories.
Mm,
That's not what I'm supposed to want. I'm supposed to want this. I'm supposed to like this. I'm supposed to aim for this. Who, you know, who has the ability to tell you?
yeah.
As a mom, I had certain visions for my kids, and each one shows where they're going. And um, my son went to Cornell, graduated with a business degree, thinking he's going into business or he'll open his own business. He joined Teach for America because he wanted to give back. That
Hmm.
wasn't really in the script,
Yeah.
but it fed him. It fed him. It brought him alive for as long as he did it. And when it didn't anymore, and it was really breaking his heart to see some of the things he saw, he moved into business and opened up his own business. So, why that path? The compassion, the warmth, the love he learned. My daughter went in another direction. She would have been a marvelous lawyer. I told her often she could debate anything you asked her to do. You could debate that for 12 hours till you finally said, I give up. You win. I'm done. And she didn't. She went into medicine. And she's
Interesting.
amazing. She does, she assists in orthopedic pediatric surgeries
Mm,
and loves it. So was it right for me to tell them where they should go?
yeah.
I could show them the strengths I saw in them, but they needed to find where they were going to go with their lives because it
Yeah.
wasn't my journey; it's theirs.
That's
You
right.
know? And we need to do that. And if we can do that with our children and our partners, how can we help our own employees? How can we help ourselves find that place that best works for us? I've helped some leaders recognize they had this great person working for them, but it was a bad fit. But they
Hmm.
found a department that was a perfect fit where that person could thrive. And because somebody who didn't fit was out of their own department, their department was working so much better.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something wrong with that person, it was just a wrong fit. you
Yeah.
know so if we don't recognize, because we're trying to become who we think we need to be, we never get to be our best, which means
Mm.
we never get to give our best to the organization or to our partners or to anybody else.
It keeps bringing back the idea of the stories that we tell ourselves, like you've mentioned several times, and that idea of I want to start questioning the stories that I tell myself more often, because we're thinking the same things day in, day out, the same
Right.
stories. We're saying the same things to ourselves. But when do we ever stop and question what it is we're saying? Like, when did I start thinking that? When did I start believing that? How has that actually been serving me? And then you can really, you are the main character. You are the author of your story. And if you can choose any story that you want, why hang on to an old story from the past you, from your past achievements? Why not craft a new, empowering, and exciting journey to take on this next adventure?
Well, because notice that the story you tell yourself defines what you see. If your parents told you were dumb or you were limited or you were whatever, and now you've worked in two different careers and you've failed at a couple of them, you see all of the failures because it's in alignment with the story. If you stepped out of the story, you may see you also succeeded amazingly over here. you're right, but I guess I didn't see that. No, because you only saw what you expected to see. You missed another whole reality because you didn't expect to see it, so you didn't validate it. You only validated what fit the story you're telling yourself.
Yes.
And a huge piece that I recognize is we need to recognize stories. So many people I work with don't even recognize it's a story they're telling themselves. They think it's a universal truth.
Mm.
The perfect example, I think, growing up as I did in an Irish Catholic context, I knew the entire world had fish on Fridays. Everybody in the whole world ate fish on Fridays. Why? Because every single person I knew had fish on Fridays. So the whole world did,
Yeah.
until much later when I get out there and realize, oh my God, there are people that don't eat fish. There were people actually not Catholic. Oh my God, there are people who aren't Irish. Oh my
Those
God.
poor people, because
How
fish
did all this
is
happen?
good.
Listen, looking, how did this happen? So you begin to see what other fallacies do I think are universal truths that
Yeah.
aren't about myself or about the world? What do I think are universal truths that aren't?
Yes.
There is so much freedom in recognizing stories you tell yourself that have no validity. All right. It's so much freedom. And I think the gift of a great coach is someone who can allow you to see the stories you're telling yourself that have nothing to do with your reality.
Yes.
Yes, you did fail at those two jobs. You know what? But look at how you thrived at these other things. I'm not denying this happened, but let's bring in this whole other reality you missed because it didn't fit the messages you were carrying. And now that we know that, over here, what works for you going forward?
Mm.
Okay. So let's shift what you're looking at. Let's shift what's happening. What can you learn from the failures? And what can you learn from your great successes? Because this is where your strengths are,
Yes.
you know? So it's really the freedom you get from, again, though we go back to how we started this whole conversation, the freedom you get from the ability to step back, put your life over there, and let's look at you in the chair.
Yeah.
What's the reality over here? All right. It will be a very different view of your life if you look at it with different eyes.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
I like how we've intertwined that beginning to everything we've been talking about, because it's so true. And there's, when I was a leader in a company before I had a personal coach outside that company, it
Mhm.
never struck me as something that was important to find a mentor, to find a coach outside of the direct company or industry, that even area that I'm working and living in. And it changed my life and it changed my business. And I know that there's a lot of people who want to discover their leadership personality, who want that personalized guidance, who want to work with somebody like yourself. I know you have a program coming up very soon here.
Yeah.
It's the you are called to, and it's a 10-month group coaching program for women in transition.
Right.
And I'm curious to hear, what does it look like when someone joins this program, or when someone works with you, for people who haven't had a coach before? What would you?
The first thing I do is I work with them. They take that leadership self-assessment tool. They look at what is your style of leadership. It's all done out. You simply answer questions, and you find the answers when you're done of things you may not have seen. All right. How you think, what you believe, what you look at, what you see when you look at different things, and doing that, and then looking at the patterns you've developed, because we all develop patterns, and I find patterns intriguing. So what are the patterns you've developed in your life? What are the patterns you developed in your leadership that we can assess? And then it's really looking at how well that's impacted your health. So I have all of my folks take a health assessment, and it doesn't matter what they come in to see me for. Why give them just what they ask for when I can give them so much more? All right. So I then have them write down the diseases and disorders they've had from as far back infancy, if they can, all the way up to the present day. And then when they look at those, they're going to see that they're really right in alignment with their style of personality and their style of leadership. That is almost predictable. And so when I can show them that, they can begin to see how you walk in the world impacts you emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And that, for most folks, is like, I never thought about that. Well, now that you've got that basic, to me, the foundation down, let's do the real work. That's fun. And let's jump in. And so at that point in time, it's what are the stories you're telling yourself?
Yeah.
Let's look at why you came to me. What is it you came here to learn? What is it you came here to do with me that I can best help you with? What are the stories you are telling yourself that got you into this predicament that you need help from me with? Okay. What created that? What stories do we need to change so you can let that go and move forward and recognize ways in which those stories are impacting your life that you may not even be aware of? All right. And then what is your vision? If you came to work with me, it's because you had a vision. What was the vision? And many people, I find out they have this vision, and when they make it this big, they think, whoa, what about this? What if it were this big? What can we do over here? What if your vision? That's terrifying. Okay, we don't have to go there, but recognize you can go over there. And if you know you can go over there, this doesn't seem anywhere near as intimidating because this is a possibility you don't have to go for. Stick with this. I've had people come to me and say, I want to make 50,000 a year. And I say, oh, really? Okay. What if you were to make 150,000? Oh,
Yeah.
what if you make 500? Oh my God. Oh my God. That's terrible. Well, let's start with 100. Let's go from your 50 to 100. Let's start with that. And, then I've got some that are making well into seven figures. And it's not about money. It's about, I wish I could have not a thing, but time to do this or time to do that. Okay, well, what's the story that says you can't? What's the story that has you limited to that's not possible or this isn't possible? So let's look at that story. And if this is how much freedom you think you want, what if you had this much freedom? And again, is that really possible? I don't think it is in my industry. Let's talk about that a minute. Let's talk about that.
Story.
Yeah, the story is, again, all the stories, and let's expand that vision. Then who do you need to become to be that person?
Yeah.
Is another one of those things I look at, because you can say, I wish I had the ability at the time to go away for a month, to go away a couple times a year for 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. I wish I had the time to really just step away. If you really wish that, my guess is you can do that. I don't believe we have a dream we can't conquer. So let's look at how you can achieve that, how you can make that happen, because you can. Because if you truly want it, you can make it happen. So let's look at who you need to become to give yourself permission to follow your dreams. It means you have to give up being powerless. You have to give up being weighted down by the burdens and responsibilities you carry. Can you imagine a life in which you have the freedom to create the journey you want? Well,
Yeah.
I think that's pushing it. Well, maybe it isn't. So let's talk about that and let's look at this differently. So it really is that. And then to me, it's flaunt your wares. And this group coaching program I'm doing, and part of that, each of these steps I'm talking about is part of that group coaching program as well. And in the 7th month, the whole focus is on flaunting your wares. Why be humble? I'm not talking about being egotistical.
Yeah.
But if I'm really good at what I do, and I am really good at what I do, then own that.
Yes.
I am not the coach that's going to sit here and help you write a detailed business plan. Refer you to somebody else. That is not going to be my strength with you. That doesn't mean I feel inadequate or inept. That means I know that's not I can help you do an overview of that. If you want minute details, go to somebody for whom that's their zone.
Yeah.
What I can do is help you achieve the dream you thought you couldn't achieve. What I can do is help you get out of your own way. What I can do is help you create a perspective that makes all of the things you wish you had possible by helping you recognize the stories. I can help you get your health back. I can do many of those things, and I'm really good at that. But I also know what I'm not good at.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. But in humility, I can say, I'm great over here. Not real good over here. Do not, I can give some advice, but then go to somebody who really can take you to much further place. And so flaunt your ways, own it. That's not ego. True humility is truth. Humility is owning all the gifts you've got while recognizing other people have those gifts as well.
Yeah.
I am not the only person on the planet who can do what I do, but I'm the only person who does it with the energy I do it with.
Yeah.
the only person with my history that has my perspectives and my views. And then it really is, creating that new reality. What is that going to look like? What is that new reality you're creating going to look like for you? What is your personal life going to look like? What's your business life going to look like? What's your business if you're an entrepreneur? What is that going to look like?
Yes.
Or if you're in corporate, what is that job going to do? Can you rewrite your job description? And my guess is you've got some more fluidity than you think you have in rewriting parts of your job description. And then finally, and we end up with, how do you do self-care while you live your life purpose? Because if you leave not having an awareness of how to do self-care, and for every one of us, it's different.
Yeah.
For some, it's every day getting out and walking your dog for an hour. I don't have a dog. I don't want a dog. So it's not going to work well for me. All right.
Yeah.
Nothing against dogs. I just spent a week babysitting 2 dogs while my daughter was away on holiday. I have a big black lab and a little chihuahua.
Nice.
Runs the house, but I was there doing that. So they're wonderful to visit, but thank you. I went home.
I'm with you.
So everybody is in his own, but to me, the water, take me to the water and everything washes away.
Yeah.
The moment I'm by the water, somebody else, it's the mountains. So what is it for you? Know what feeds you, because if you don't, you're not going to bring it in.
Yeah.
Then know what it is, build that into your self-care, and then look at how is all that going to fit into as you live your life purpose. Because these ways of getting fed have got to be a part of living your life purpose. It isn't an either or.
Yeah.
You have to be so compulsive and so driven that I lose touch. You can't, because that creates the emotional, spiritual, and physical illness and impacts the productivity and profit in your company enormously. So
Yes.
it all comes around full circle.
That's amazing.
It's a fun trip.
I believe you. Yes. And I think this conversation has been a fun trip, and everything you said about your program and coaching is absolutely incredible. And guys, I know that some of you are thinking, I want to look more into this, find more information. There's links in the description for Dr. Dorothy's website. I'm also going to include her LinkedIn so that you can connect with her there. Yeah. And is there anywhere else that people should connect, or are those 2 places?
Well, I'm everywhere like all of us, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, you name it. I'm out there. TikTok, I've got it,
Nice.
It's a strange world out there. But LinkedIn, my email address, drop me a line or give me a call.
Okay.
Meet me on LinkedIn. It would be great. When you do what you love, you want to do it everywhere.
Yes.
You want to impact everybody. So, again, but I do balance.
Yes.
But how can I do it? So doing a group, and my group is going to be limited to 12 people. So doing a group, I can do what I love, but I can do it with 12 people who can support each other as well as being guided by me. So you find ways to do what you do and reach the most amount of people possible.
Yes.
While still being most effective,
Yep. Absolutely.
It makes it exciting.
Dr. Dorothy, thank you so much for all of this. Thank you for sharing a bit of your story, a very small part of your story, but a very powerful one at that. And that's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's such a joy. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. There's a lot to unpack here, guys, from the stories that we tell ourselves to how we take care of ourselves, to our past and our history, and that time of our life where we had that calling, but we might not have been aware of it. We might not have seen it, but it was there nonetheless. What's your calling? What is your zone of genius? Where are you best fit with the skills and abilities that you have to serve other people and make a difference as a purpose-driven leader? Check out Dr. Dorothy's LinkedIn page, her Instagram. I'll have everything in the description for you if you're watching and listening, and as well as the website for Dr. Dorothy's upcoming 10-month coaching program, the You're Called To. Go check them out. As always, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to share this show with just one person if you took even 1 ounce of goodness away from this, one new philosophy, or even if we just made you smile. Share the show. And thank you so much for watching. Until we talk again next time, continue to be better.